Okay, I didn't want to do this, but it seems like I must. I have to return once again to the subject of what's known as critical race theory. And the reason why I'm doing it is recently Governor Kay Ivey, if you don't know who that is the governor of Alabama, aka my home state, which compelled me to talk about this issue. She came out with a tweet 2 days ago to be exact, and she said, "We have permanently banned," in all caps, critical race theory in Alabama. We're focusing on teaching our children how to read and write, not hate. Wow, amazing. So, like I said, I'm only talking about this because this is indeed my home state. And also, this critical race theory thing is getting a bit out of hand, in my honest opinion. And I want to provide a little bit of insight to people that are maybe looking at this and not knowing what the fuck is going on. So, that's what she tweeted out. And in the second half of that tweet, she said, "We're focused on teaching our children how to read and write, not hate." Now, before I address this faux outrage over CRT, I want to address this, her saying we're focused on teaching our children how to read, write, and not hate. Alabama is ranked number 47 out of all of the states and as it pertains to their education. We are in the bottom 5 in terms of our educational system in this state. This AL article goes on to outline, in Alabama, fewer than half of the students read at grade level. Yeah. So she says they're focused on teaching their children how to read and write. They're not doing a good job. Not doing a good job. 2 years ago, Ivy signed a law requiring all third graders not reading at grade level to be held back. So fuck trying to, get programs out there to help these children. Fuck trying to, allocate money to schools and what have you to, provide for them the necessary tools that they may be lacking that may be attributable to why they're not reading at grade level. Fuck all of that. If you're not reading at third grade level, we just gonna hold you back. A year out from that mandate taking effect, school systems are faced with potentially flunking a lot of kids. That's what this article says. Wow. Wow. So they're focused on teaching children how to read and write, not hate. But that hasn't been happening. So is it going to happen now? My guess is no. Now allow me to pivot to the CRT now that we've exposed that bullshit of teaching the children. She doesn't give a fuck about the children. Look at this. Why does this keep coming up? I'll tell you. It's culture war nonsense, okay? They're trying to find another issue that they can talk about and rile up their base without actually addressing things that need to be addressed, like healthcare, jobs, wages, foreign policy, all the rest of it. Because the things that they believe in regards to those things I just listed are absolutely terrible. And they're unpopular, and nobody likes it, except for certain portions of their rabid base. And I do mean certain portions because, honestly, if you were to break it down to a certain percentage of Republicans in this country, they'd come around, I believe. But it's not being broken down. The American people are constantly being hit with propaganda and nonsense, like what you're seeing here from Kay Ivey. And so things get confusing, and they believe things that they otherwise wouldn't believe if they were being told the truth, right? So she came out and did this grandstanding and puffed her chest out and said, we're banning critical race theory. And this is from the same AL article, okay? This is absolutely amazing. She says that they banned critical race theory. That's not true. So this month, the Alabama State Board of Education, on which Ivy presides as president, passed a so-called critical race theory ban, which didn't in fact ban CRT from schools. And this is the quote from the board. So the State Board of Education specifically prohibits each local board of education from offering K-12 instruction that indoctrinates students in social or political ideologies or theories that promote one race or sex above another. That's what the board's administrative code says. Taught almost exclusively in some law classes and in graduate level courses. So that's referring to critical race theory. It's only being taught in graduate level courses, some in some law schools. So not even in undergrad is it being taught, and it's damn sure isn't being taught in K through 12. Do you see what I mean by the faux outrage? This isn't like what you're banning it for. What? Who's learning it? They can't even tell you. And not only that, they can't even tell you what it means. It's a distraction. It's a distraction. They're talking about this. I just made a video about the Virginia governor that vowed to ban critical race theory if elected. That's what he's running on. This idiot is running on banning something that isn't even being taught to children to avoid from talking about things that actually matter or matter more so immediately. Because when you really get into the ins and outs of what critical race theory is and you actually understand it, then yes, of course, what they're talking about in that specific concept does matter as well. But you get what I'm saying. They're obfuscating and trying to evade actually talking about certain issues by, fanning the flames of the culture war, which they do so very well these days. It says critical race theory examines how social structure and the government system disadvantage minorities, sometimes to the benefit of whites who are unaware of those privileges those systems give them. It doesn't teach that one race is better than another, or that one sex or gender is better than another, and that some get a better shake from the system than others. That's blatantly obvious. And you know what? That's not only blatantly obvious along race lines, that's blatantly obvious along class lines. And that's what we need to fix. And that's what the argument needs to be framed as. This is a class issue. This is a class issue. The Rand Corporation, I always say this, they did a study where the top 1% stole. They've effectively stolen. They're thieves. They've taken $50 trillion from the bottom 90% since the middle of the 1970s. That upward distribution that's what's been happening. And what do they tell us all the time? Oh, if the rich people have all the money, they'll create jobs. They haven't been creating jobs. What's been happening? We've been getting hit with a bunch of propaganda of a so-called labor shortage. We all know that's a bunch of bullshit. So what is it? What is it? You see, these are the things that they don't want to talk about. That's why they do this bullshit. In short, the state school board's critical race theory ban doesn't ban critical race theory. But what's important here is that Ivy is lying about critical race theory. But, isn't that Ivy is lying about critical race theory? What's important is her promise 2 years ago to do better. Now, I don't really want to get into this. 2 years ago, she was caught doing blackface or whatever. But it's actually funny. I actually saw this argument by the same guy that wrote this article that I just read to you. These different states. So when they passed this legislation to ban CRT, it doesn't specifically say that we're banning CRT. It says kind of like what I just read to you here. We're banning divisive concepts. We're banning teaching that one race is better than another. That's not what CRT is. So by definition, that CRT can still be taught because it's technically not banned because that's not what it means. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's idiocy. It's nonsense. They're just, like I said previously, fanning the flames of the culture war. This is a huge obfuscation, a huge attempt to create an illusion to get people riled up, to care about something, they're trying to say that all white people are bad or whatever type of nonsense they're pushing these days. But I just want people to understand this is what politicians do when they have nothing to offer you, okay? They grandstand and they puff their chest out and pretend to be tough and say, oh, I'm cracking down on something that's really bad. Meanwhile, Alabama has one of the highest percentages in the country. I think we're top 3 of workers still making $7.25 an hour. Talk about that, Miss K. Ivy. I mean, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And hopefully more people can come to realize this and understand the theatrics and the kabuki theater that is played on them so often by these insanely corrupt politicians.